This week's episode was brought to you by Jonathan Kant, Zebra 333, Keith, John Johnson, Catherine Sackett, and Crystal Sowers. Thank you, Jonathan Kant, Zebra 333, Keith, John Johnson, Catherine Sackett, and Crystal Sowers. It's with the generous support of listeners just like you that our 10,000-gallon tanks of boiling slime harvested from the saliva of an undead dragon we keep chained in the basement is reduced down until it's a fine paste that can be used as a salve that provides relief for brain aches, butt hurt, and blue barnacles. If you'd like to help us reduce dragon saliva down into a fancy ointment, or just hear the second half of this episode, then please visit www.patreon.com/thewholerabbit, where your monthly donation of just $5 will not only get you this extended episode, but all of our extended episodes going back over 5 years. But not only that, I'll send you a 5x5 high-quality vinyl sticker of our Big Bunny Baphomet cover art, along with the secret keys to our Discord server, where we are currently preparing continuation of government protocols for when the nukes start flying. The Whole Rabbit is, and always has been, commercial-free due to the ongoing support of our listeners. Because of this, we need your help getting the word out about The Whole Rabbit. If you enjoy the show, please tell a friend, or better yet, a group of internet people you don't know in real life. If you're in the market for some tarot card readings, you could probably subscribe to our $20 tier for like 3 months and get 3 separate tarot readings for the cost of one you'd get elsewhere. So think about it. On this week's episode, we discuss the most likely ways the world will end. Before diving into the chilling details, we explore a dark philosophical overlap shared between occultists and mainstream religion in the field of eschatology, the study of the end of the world. We show how Armageddon, a word only used once in the Bible, still looms large as a literal possibility for being the spark that sets the whole world on fire. Before wrapping up the free show, we listen to personal stories of survivors from Hiroshima and outline what would happen during a nuclear exchange between the United States and Russia if it were to happen today. In the extended show, we discuss the planet-killing asteroids like Apophis and some promising methods of detecting and diverting them. We also touch upon supermassive volcanoes, the threat of gray goo nanomachine apocalypse, and perhaps most alarmingly, the imminent possibility of our magnetic poles suddenly reversing entirely. So raise your glasses, have a toast, and we hope that you lose a lot of sleep on this one. Thank you, everybody, and enjoy the show. You know, people joke about the end of the world all the time. There's
yeah?
Almost like there's no tomorrow.
Oh.
Where do you kiss somebody if the world is ending?
On the butt.
What?
On the apocalypse.
Aw, that's kind of cute.
I was out walking this morning, and I was passed by a guy riding a tractor on the road. As he passed me, he was screaming, "It's the end of the world! The end of the world, I tell you!" When I got home, I told my wife. She said it was probably just Farmageddon.
Okay.
It's so bad.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Whole Rabbit, where we don't just tell you about how the starry-eyed Soviet scientists bet time and space using nothing but a polished sheet of aluminum, 2 cartons of cigarettes, and the sheer force of Russian willpower. Nay, we also talk about the way starry-eyed Soviet scientists exploded a bomb so goddamn big it nearly threw the Earth off its axis. And that was the small one, because this week, we're discussing the end of the world, which, if you're hearing this episode, thankfully, it has not happened yet, but someday it will. And this week, we're going to discuss exactly how. Not because we can accurately predict the future, but because it's 2024 and we're going to be very inclusive. I'm your host, Luke Madrid, also known as Hack Rabbit. I'm joined this week by my co-host, the eschatological immanentizer, Marisama.
Welcome, listeners, and rejoice, for paradise is nigh.
The Malthusian Menace, Malachor 5.
Cry and ponder thy orb.
And the unicursal hexacorn, Heka Astra.
Goodbye.
It's all over.
Every day I go on Twitter, it looks like it's gonna be any day now. I was sick of just sitting there worrying about it, so I made an episode to try and convince the world that maybe we shouldn't push the red button. Just a suggestion, you know?
I don't think I'm ready for the 9th paradigm. I don't have enough money.
Kiflon, brother, that's how you know you're ready if you know you're not ready.
God damn it. Where do I pay?
From the beginning, people have lived in fear of the end. I'm pretty sure, back in the day, the night was so scary that, fearing the morning would never come, shamans would take offerings or make sacrifices in order to make the sun come back up again. Then, if somebody made you mad, you could always threaten to not make the sun come back up again unless they did exactly as you say. In this way, the apple has not fallen far from the tree. And religions, old and new, each promise that the end of the world is just around the corner. It's almost part of a package deal. And Lord knows, the world probably has gotten pretty close to ending once or twice. But as of yet, however, despite all the passionate promises and pious prophecies, the world has grown deaf to all the cries of wolf throughout the millennia. And still, it's particularly inevitable that one of these times, the cries will be real.
You know, those military drones probably will love the sound of our cries.
Screams in 4K. Livestream your death as it drops grenades on your nutsack for Twitter to watch. Now, in the religious world, the discussion about the end of the world is commonly referred to as eschatology, a remarkably academic-sounding word for such a fantastical concept. I feel like when you use the word eschatology, it makes it sound like it's definitely going to happen. Eschatology came into the use in the 19th century, so relatively recently, and it's a conjunction of the Greek eschatos, last, furthest, uttermost, extreme, most remote in time, space, degree, from the Proto-Indo-European ex-ko, a suffix of out, like to go out. That's combined with ology, the study of something. Thus, in theology, eschatology is the study of the 4 last things: death, judgment, heaven, and hell. Typically, these are all thought to reach their climax at the end of times, which itself is something referred to as the eschaton. So people have been studying this stuff for a long time. Even if half the time, I guess all the time, they're just sort of making stuff up or speculating.
I first heard about this word eschaton from Behemoth. They have a song called Chant for Eschaton 2000. No lyrics, it's just a instrumental death metal song, and it's really good. And there's notes on the bottom of these early Behemoth albums that full of thelema and Egyptian magical knowledge that I was absolutely enamored and fascinated by for the rest of my life.
Which raises the question, why do you always hear about it in the world of the occult? It's because religious eschatology and its fabled eschaton is closely related to the idea of dispensationalism, which features prominently in the occult world as well. This is where we get the idea of a new age, or if we're into waving wands, dressing in black, we might refer to it as the new Aeon. Either way, the idea is the same. While in the occult world, dispensationalism is conceptualized more like God's middle management having a shift change. In religions like mainstream Christianity, the eschaton is closer to an itinerary of ass whoopings and punishments that will necessarily preclude the establishing of the kingdom of heaven here on earth, which sounds more like a happily ever after than a quote new age. And so it makes sense when a dyed-in-the-wool Christian hears new age, all they hear is, oh, the evil is just trying to provoke revelation to occur. And then if you ask Aleister Crowley, he's like, yes, that is what is going on. And of course, these two perspectives, they do sound somewhat at odds with each other, but they both agree that the hardship and social decay that we're facing in our modern world is due to one era ending and a new one beginning. In either case, it's not hard to imagine why folks would get the idea that they should accelerate the entire transition so we can get the uncomfortable part over with. This is generally what is called immanentizing the eschaton, a phrase you wouldn't normally say out loud unless you want people to stare at you like a dog that's been shown a card trick. Even still, it is an important concept regarding the end of times, because if nature won't provide the catalyst, humans promise to split the difference and make it happen anyway. The scary part is that, wow, the variety of different spiritual schools of thought or religion that can agree on very little about God or even what is good, they tend to agree on this eschaton being inevitable. And the benefit of immanentizing it means spending less time caught suffering between the old dead age of darkness and the oncoming wand of light, beauty, glory, and artificial peace. It's better than real peace. It's like the maple syrup, you know? I want my maple syrup fake!
No! As a Canadian, I have to say, pure maple syrup, grade A only.
Look, as long as you don't put it in the goddamn fridge, I'll eat it.
Maple syrup?
Yeah, if you put
What's wrong?
syrup in the fridge,
You're a damn heathen.
I want warm syrup on my hot pancakes, okay?
I see what you
But
mean.
it lasts longer in the fridge, though.
You're not eating enough pancakes then.
The point is, for us folks down here at the bottom who are just trying to live our lives. There's people up there making decisions for us based on the idea that civilization must first collapse before it can be remade. And this is all regardless of the religious, spiritual, or occult affiliations. Meaning, regardless if you believe a bunch of high heel wearing Satan worshipping Marxists rule the world, or a bunch of old white neocon fascist religious patriarchal wackos, or a Thalamic orgy space cult, or Islamic bloodline royalty, or New Age theosophical weirdos, it doesn't matter. They would all be too collectively fond of this idea for us to sleep comfortably at night.
I like to commonly say that the number one magic spell is to come back from the dead or transcend death, right? Number two is to be able to predict things, and the apocalypse, or when Jesus is coming back, are like on the top of the list of what is most important to look at in the future, right? I guess number three is like invisibility or teleportation, but that's besides the point. The philosophy and any magical lessons based off of like predicting things, especially the end of things, that's a pretty good spell.
Well, that's ideally what eschatology is supposed to do. You're like, hey, it's exactly 3 days after the dead pelicans show up on the beach that the cheese crackers are poisoned, and that's when the locusts are coming. And then once the locusts come, they're gonna sting the bottom of our feet, and after they sting the bottom of our feet, that's when the giants are going to get a rash, and they'll start pounding on the earth like this. You're like, okay. And then all different Christian sects like disagree on like how it's going to be dispensed in different periods of time, because the Bible sort of makes it sound like there's going to be different periods distinctly.
Very interesting, huh?
Yeah, but even Terence McKenna had a theory of the Eschaton and how it's an attractive force in the future. So it's really universal, this idea.
Maury, that is a great example of the hippies doing the exact same thing that the religious people do. So even they agree. Even the mushroom-eating, armpit-hair-having hippies, they believe in the Eschaton. They just think it's some transcendental object at the end of time. Same thing.
Yep.
So as usual, the devil is in the details. We've talked ad nauseum on the show about Aleister Crowley and his channeled Book of the Law, which his wife and he received in Cairo, Egypt, circa 1908. This Book of the Law promised a new dispensational era, the rapid dawning of a new Aquarian age for humanity, ruled by the spiritual energies of the Egyptian deity Horus, who, amongst other things, like this guy, he's self-described as the spirit of war and vengeance, especially in Thelema. It's sometimes offered that each time Crowley's Book of the Law went into mass publishing, a new global conflict would erupt. And this is where hardcore occultists and dyed-in-the-wool religious zealots might find a dark alliance with their conflicting worldviews, because, well, immanentizing the Eschaton means breaking a few eggs to arrive at a new glorious paradigm for the occultists, with light bulbs and boobs. To the religious, it means entirely smashing the whole basket of eggs, because until that happens, the prophesied Messiah will not arrive and establish the kingdom of heaven. And you want the kingdom of heaven, right?
Yeah.
That's what Rip Torn takes you to a breakfast cafe, and all the food is delicious, but Rip Torn is eating like burnt corned beef hash. And then you have to go to trial and answer for all the bad decisions you made in your life. And they decide whether you go to heaven or not. The whole point is God has a plan, and we're all part of it, after all. And so it should be no mystery why acceleration rears its ugly head into foreign policy and human relations so regularly. His people believe it must happen. In terms of Christianity, this plan is revealed to John of Patmos, the author of the appropriately titled Book of Revelation, which details the coming Armageddon, or the final war between the forces of good and the forces of evil, which, according to God, will be the big opening ceremony for the end of the world. Marisama. Bible time.
This is where we all sing the song New.
Is that by Creed?
The Blue Man from the Olympic ceremony.
Oh, gosh. So it says Revelation 16:13 through 16. And I saw 3 unclean spirits like frogs come out of the mouth of the dragon, and out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet. For they are the spirits of devils, working miracles, which go forth unto the kings of the earth and of the whole world, to gather them to the battle of that great day of God Almighty. Behold, I come as a thief. Blessed is he that watcheth, and keepeth his garments, lest he walk naked, and they see his shame. And he gathered them together into a place called, in the Hebrew tongue, Armageddon.
I like how the dragon, the beast, and the false prophet are just retweeting each other.
Yeah, that is trippy. The word Armageddon is interesting, though, if you've ever looked into it.
And it's here. In Revelation 16:16, that Armageddon is mentioned this one and only time. Yet the idea endures even amongst the profane and non-believers as a household word for the end of times. According to biblical scholars, Armageddon is referring to the location of this great final battle between good and evil, an actual place on the earth called Megiddo.
I say Megiddo.
I say Megiddo.
So this all begs the question, what's so special about Megiddo? Megiddo. Well, history gives us some clues. Megiddo has been populated as far back as 7000 BC and was first known to the Akkadians as Megiddo. Magadoo? I like Magadoo.
According to Wikipedia, Megiddo was important in the ancient world. It guarded the western branch of a narrow pass on the most important trade route of the ancient Fertile Crescent, linking Egypt with Mesopotamia and Anatolia, and known today as Via Maris.
So if you've ever played World of Warcraft, it's like the Barrens.
There's like trade routes, and the best routes are controlled by the neighboring territories.
Via Maris means way of the sea, but this road has held several different names through history. Before it was called Way of the Philistines, a Philistine being a term for a person who is ignorant or uneducated, specifically a person who lacks appreciation of or is antagonistic towards art or culture. So the word Philistine is used to refer to an opponent or hostile foe, and this associated meaning seems to be derived from a group of ancient non-Semitic peoples hailing from the southwest Levant in the Middle East.
It's kind of like calling somebody a bum,
Or a plebeian.
a pleb.
It's like a reputation that became like a descriptive word for a kind of thing, whether it's a person or a road or what have you. So in time, even before it was referred to as the Way of the Philistines, it was called the Way of Horus by the ancient Egyptian. And this coastal road was and still is a highly important trade route. It's been used since the ancient world, having been dotted with military bases, wells, and the like along its path. It leads eastward from the origin at the Nile Delta, connecting it to modern-day Israel through Gaza. It's kind of like along the sea, and it extends far beyond that as well. So because this route was and still is highly important, during the biblical Exodus, the Hebrews had to take the less desirable long way around through a different desert pass around mountains called the Way of the Wilderness, or the Way of Shur. The word Shur basically means wall because of the wall located there to keep foreign invaders out. And it's because of the Way of Horus, the Way of Philistines, or Via Maris's efficient pathway that it has always seemed to be an area of conflict.
The Way of Sure is a sure thing. It's the sure way through.
That's the hard road traveled, basically. Way of Shur. It sure is difficult trekking through the wilderness.
Not as difficult as having a pole chucked at your face and having all your wares stolen.
I mean, there's some people who get paid for poles getting stuck in their face.
Because your theory is we're going to go down there and have a donkey barbecue and I'm going to furnish the ass, right?
It's true.
Giggity.
So while it's obscure at first, we can infer from these clues that Armageddon could be generalized out to be a battle between multiple kingdoms over the Holy Land of Israel/Palestine. One side good, the other side evil, although veiled by a shroud of human political motivations. In short, Armageddon implies it will be human actors who will play the key role and bringing forth the end of days. Revelation itself is a fairly informative word for understanding how this event is thought of. Revelation, after all, means to reveal something. The name of this biblical book, Revelation, is derived from the first word of the text, apocalypsis, a Koine Greek term with the same meaning, to unveil or reveal something. This is an important distinction when attempting to understand the Eschaton, or the end of the world, because it contextualizes it as something that is not a choice, or even something that we can hope to avoid. It is an inevitability. It's already there. We're just taking the curtain off of it. Oh, look at that!
You know, there's some magical axioms, right? Some magical sayings. One of them I've been told by philosophical spiritual teachers is that the veil will be lifted from you by the one who put it over you in the first place. That's just the way things work. And the idea of the unveiling is a big event. You know, determining who it is in control of the veil is hard to determine until the veil is lifted. So it's a Wizard of Oz scenario here that I'm getting at, and that it's such a powerful message for the magical journey, for the mage.
This whole conversation just reminds me of Apocalypse Now, which plays with a lot of these ideas and then some.
And it's in the name, Apocalypse.
It's in the damn name. It's even got some of the Christian stuff in there, like at the end of the film, Willard walks out and they all lay down their weapons. You know, like it's Jesus Christ bringing the end of the old era, you know. So in the past, the idea of human war affecting the end of the world, as gruesome and horrible as war could be, implied a glorious struggle where the forces of evil would be vanquished. And if any giant bowls of wrath were going to be poured out upon the earth, well, you could expect an angel or a natural disaster to be doing the dirty work. Not anymore. No, no. Since the halfway point of the 20th century, humans have achieved an ability to destroy the planet so thoroughly and totally, we've completely phased out the need for a wrathful god of the Old Testament. With the rapid expansion of technology in the age of Aquarius, we went from being able to turn entire rivers red with blood in hours to being able to turn the surface of a large metropolitan area into rivers of molten metal in seconds. This ultimately owes itself to the discovery of the neutron and the awesome ability it gave us to split the atom, breaking the bonds which held it together and releasing a flash of energy so hot it is likened to the sudden appearance of a miniature sun. This conversion of a small amount of mass into a large amount of raw energy operates on the principle of the universe that Albert Einstein discovered how to express mathematically with his famous equation E energy equals mass times the speed of light squared equals mc squared. The weaponization of this technology was achieved by the United States through the Manhattan Project during World War II, which first produced only 3 testable bombs.
Trinity experiment.
Yes, the Trinity experiment. So while it's hard to say for certain if eschatology was specifically in mind when the project was named, the test of the first nuclear explosion in the Trinity Project happened at Socorro, New Mexico. The word Socorro is a Portuguese Spanish noun that means help or relief, which is where we get the English word succor. It's like one of those words you run into and you're like, what does this mean? That's what it means. So from the occult perspective, we might consider this a cry to God for help winning the Second World War. Turns out we just got the attention of the UFOs, because that's when the UFOs started showing up a lot more. And they do tend to observe weapons bases. They seem to have a preoccupation with us being preoccupied with nuclear weapons.
Yeah, that is the official story, that the military said that they appeared over bases and shut down like nuclear devices. They seem to be very interested in atomic energy, at least.
So if you're one of those people that's really hip to the idea that maybe aliens created us, and they're our creators, that we did this big ritual to get the great father in the sky to come down and help us, and then the UFOs show up, well, we got the farmer to show up. Imagine if the ants in your backyard were playing with hand grenades. You'd be like, hold on a minute. Hey, ants, stop! It's my garden, you stupid ants.
Just pour bleach on it.
Take a piss on them, see what happens.
They like it.
It's acid rain.
Now, the Trinity test featured a plutonium explosion style device, which would later be used on Fat Man in Nagasaki. Just inside the weapon's smooth car-sized shell is a series of carefully packed explosives, metal casings, and a highly concentrated core of nickel-plated plutonium. Inside, there are 36 detonators that have been smoothly inserted into each of the 36 faces on the truncated icosahedron, which initiates the reaction, exploding inward and coalesces into a sphere-shaped compression wave, which crushes a plutonium-beryllium urchin, sending a blast of neutrons into the nickel-plated plutonium, which explodes outward but is given 20% extra size due to what is called a tamper, which redirects some of the energy back inwards, causing the chain reaction to last just a bit longer. According to some of my childhood instructors at space camp, the scientists who oversaw Trinity were not entirely certain that chain reaction would not run away and do something catastrophic like accidentally igniting the ionosphere and spit roasting the entire planet. As you probably could imagine, they did it anyway. They had to push the button. What are they gonna do, not push the button? It was a minor risk. It could have just resulted in the death of every single thing on the planet.
I mean, it would have solved the problem because it would have ended the war.
It would have. You see the sky rip off the earth like a sheet.
Worth it. My God, let's take a picture next to the sky opening.
YOLO.
Let's take a selfie. Oh, look at that. That's what's going to happen. It's going to be like 30 minutes of apocalypse and you're going to be like on Instagram. Huh, my friend's taking a picture next to like demons. Holy shit.
He's a real fancy boy.
The rift is open.
It's just the new Taylor video.
Generation's first unveiling.
So, from a spiritual perspective, the truncated icosahedron is an interesting choice because it is composed of the two polygonal equivalents to the hexagram and the pentagram used in traditional demonic evocation of the Solomonic variety. The 5 and the 6 in union, also thelemic, if you will, because those two numbers are of Nuit.
Adonai, Holy Guardian Angel.
Absolutely, Adonai is 65. So God, please help. It's all there. And I actually misspoke. The truncated icosahedron is 32 faces. So there were 32 detonators in 32 faces of the truncated icosahedron. That being said, these 32 faces, they immediately conjure to imagination the 32 paths of wisdom attributed to the Kabbalistic tree of life. Now, according to the Air Force Nuclear Weapons Center, when Gadget, the name of this first bomb, exploded,
A forest ranger 150 miles west of the blast said he saw a flash of fire, an explosion in black smoke. An individual 150 miles north said the explosion lighted up the sky like the sun. A U.S. Navy pilot flying at 10,000 feet near Albuquerque, New Mexico, said it lit up the cockpit of his plane and was like the sun rising in the south. When he radioed Albuquerque air traffic control for an explanation, he was simply told, "Don't fly south."
Don't fly south. That's gonna be a bad time.
one spectator, Joanne Hinton, said of the Trinity test,
It was like being at the bottom of an ocean of light. We were bathed in it from all directions. The light withdrew into the bomb as if the bomb sucked it up. Then it turned purple and blue and went up and up and up. We were still talking in whispers when the cloud reached a level where it was struck by the rising sunlight, so it cleared out the natural clouds. We saw a cloud that was dark and red at the bottom and daylight at the top. Then suddenly the sound reached us. It was very sharp and rumbled, and all the mountains were rumbling with it.
so it took like a minute and a half for the sound and the blast wave to reach them where they were watching it. That's how far away they were, and yet how powerful this thing was. I think modern audiences would be familiar with that from the, of course, conclusion of Rogue One in Star Wars. It's basically what we're talking about. The best part, though, is that in this particular test of Gadget, it was just 1 gram of matter in the bomb that was converted into the active energy of heat and radiation, releasing the energy of equivalent of 21 kilotons of TNT, or 88 terajoules. So for us Imperial Americans, 21 kilotons means 21,000 tons of TNT, all in 1 gram of matter. That's a pretty great conversion rate, if you ask me. That's a lot of energy in just a gram. I've always found that fascinating.
And horrifying.
And horrifying. You know, Einstein sticking out his tongue, that's not photoshopped. He actually did that. I think he was kind of like Callie in that picture.
Oh, yeah.
There's Einstein's frumpy ass dancing over your dead body. Hard as f***. Now, on August 6th, 1945, little boy.
My birthday.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And apparently little boy's birthday too.
Yay! No, not yay. So it was on your birthday, Maury, that little boy was dropped over Hiroshima, Japan, which we're told was a desperate attempt to force the surrender of the Japanese emperor and end World War II. Although, by some accounts, the Japanese had been so badly bombed that their ability to even issue a surrender at this point may have been badly impaired. Like we're trying to call the Americans to surrender, but no phones. Just sleeping in a pile of ashes. Like, I'd wave a white flag, but I don't have one. Now, little boy, it used a more simplistic uranium gun-type fission mechanism, which blasts a uranium pellet at hypersonic speeds at another uranium pellet, causing a fission reaction. Dropped from the Enola Gay, little boy detonated 600 meters above the city, flattening nearly everything within a 1-mile radius and killing 60 to 80,000 people instantaneously. The blast was hot enough to instantly ignite fires all over the city. Men, women, children, and entire city blocks were vaporized in a blinding flash of light. Many of those who were not killed instantly suffered a fate far worse than death.
You know, for the record, I wish this never ever happened, regardless of what modern history tells us is good or bad. I never wish this happens to innocent people ever again. It shouldn't. It's wrong. It's not the way to conduct justice. Sorry.
No, it's pretty unethical. And I know there's people out there saying, oh, we're still giving out Purple Hearts, you know, that were intended for the invasion of mainland Japan, but they basically tested a nuclear weapon on civilians. And I don't think we necessarily needed to drop these bombs. Just saying.
We could have just displayed this power in the middle of the ocean outside outside of the city and put the propaganda out. Just be like, look, if you don't surrender, we'll do this to you.
You know, it's not a bad idea, Mal, and they could have done that, but they wanted an experiment. They wanted test data. You know, like a live fire exercise. Like, we're going to actually do it and see what the results are. Otherwise, we can't know what the results are, you know, for science.
We're evil.
No, Mal, science is always good. That's why we don't need God anymore.
Oh, yeah.
See, it's so simple.
I'm convinced. Good Mal's gone.
One man recounts what it was like surviving the blast. He said, I just finished breakfast and I was getting ready to go to the newspaper when it happened. There was a flash from the indoor wires as if lightning had struck. I didn't hear any sound. How shall I say? The world around me turned bright white and I was momentarily blinded as if magnesium light had lit up in front of my eyes. Immediately after that, the blast came. I was bare from the waist up. The blast was so intense, it felt like hundreds of needles were stabbing me all at once. The blast grew large holes in the walls of the first and second floor. I could barely see the room because of all the dirt. I pulled my camera and the clothes issued by the military headquarters out from under the mound of debris and I got dressed. So, military photographer type guy. I thought I would go to the newspaper, maybe to headquarters, but this was 40 minutes after the blast. Near the Miyuki Bridge, there was a police box. Most of the victims who had gathered there were junior high school girls from the Hiroshima Girls Business School and the Hiroshima Junior High School No. 1. They had been mobilized to evacuate buildings and were outside when the bomb fell. Having been directly exposed to the heat rays, they were covered with blisters the size of balls on their backs, their faces, their shoulders, and their arms, like baseballs. The blisters were starting to burst open and their skin hung down like rags. Some of the children even had burns on the soles of their feet. They had lost their shoes and run barefoot through the burning fire. One schoolboy, Hiroshi Ito, emerged through the roof of his school. He stepped out into a mist of black fog. There, he could see all the other boys were burned almost unrecognizably. Eyes and mouth were shut closed with blisters. At the swimming pool, he saw groups of schoolgirls slumped together at the water's edge. They wore white shirts from like their school uniforms, but their pants had been ignited along with the skin of their legs. They were almost completely gone. These girls sat next to each other dying one by one. Everywhere Hiroshi Ito went, he saw children like this wandering, resigned, almost lifelessly, just ambling about everywhere he went. One girl recounts finding her 10-year-old brother amongst the rubble.
All the skin on his face was peeling off and dangling, she said. He was limping feebly, all the skin from his legs burned and dragging behind him like a heap of rags.
Some people stood like grotesque statues, fossilized on impact. Heaps of blackened bodies, charred and disfigured, laid strewn all over each other as far as the eye could see. The same Akiko recalls seeing a fleshy hand emerging from the rubble, fingertips on fire, like candles. It had been wicking the fat from the lower part of the hand.
Ugh, gruesome.
Some survivors recall these hands like reaching out and grabbing you as you walked past, as there were people still alive in the rubble. So basically hell, but it gets worse.
Ugh.
Vaporized moisture and then soot from the explosion, they mixed together in the sky and they all coalesced together and began to rain black radioactive sludge all over the city, contaminating water sources, the flora, the fauna, and all the people who were standing under it outside. All told, 160,000 people would die, many from radiation sickness, where you're basically slowly liquefied and cooked from the inside out in terrifying, horrible agony. And this was made so much worse because the vaporization of this moisture made the victims who survived the blast so parched, so thirsty, they impulsively, as if possessed, went to go drink water wherever it could be found, and it was hard to find. And this included the thick, black, oily, foul-tasting rain that came shortly after the blast. This also included the rivers running red with the half-liquefied bodies of the dead. One person remembers seeing like bodies with doubly long arms floating in front of them, and it's because the skin had come off of the bones. It was like floating from the fingertips of the bones out ahead of the body.
Ugh.
And then people, they would crawl to these waterways and drink and drink and drink, but were never satisfied. And they'd projectile vomit its gray-blue sludge and then die shortly after. All throughout Hiroshima, victims of the blast could be seen walking in long lines. They were blackened from the burns, and they moved mechanically, droning or croaking repeatedly for water. Due to their appearance, many survivors would come to later refer to them as the ant walkers. One Miss Sasaki was gardening with her 2-year-old just a mile from the hypocenter and was suddenly blinded by a white flash. Miraculously, she emerged from the rubble with her daughter unharmed. Initially, when she rose up out of the debris, she thought everyone had disappeared. And she noticed a strange man climbing out of a collapsed house. He got up, he ran a little bit past them, seemingly toward the awesome plume of smoke, the air whirling with sparks. He didn't cry for help or appear cognizant of anyone else, but as he strode, a loud rhythmic clicking could be heard, which to Miss Sasaki sounded like the metal sole of a tap dancing shoe. But when she looked, she could see the man was not wearing any shoes. In fact, he had no feet at all. He was running on nothing more than bony stumps, the bone chipping and fracturing as he ran. He eventually disappeared into the black clouds, and the ghoulish clicking faded into the distance. One soldier, a private Shigeru Shimeyama, was about 6 blocks from the hypo center, but luckily he had just stepped into a reinforced concrete warehouse. When he regained consciousness, he was hanging a meter above the ground, his arms and hands impaled on nails sticking out of the wall. He eventually freed himself and emerged. When he did, he saw a number of bureaucrats struggling to free a life-sized portrait of the emperor from the rubble, and this earned bows from a number of the ant walkers. There was a military vessel going through the waterways. It was like pushing dead bodies aside as it went, and all the military men got up on top of the boat and they saluted, and it was like an emotional moment. And it was then that Shimeyama turned around. He was face to face with a strange beast he'd never seen before. It was like a pink and white horse. And that's when he realized this was a horse whose skin had been degloved by the heat and the pressure of the blast wave. At this exact moment, the horse, it didn't appear to be in pain, but this was too much for Shimeyama to handle, and he just quickly ran away as he could, looking back over his shoulder, seeing the horse looking at him sadly.
If you wanted any biblical symbolism of one of the horses that the riders are upon, the four
Pale
horsemen.
pink horse.
Yeah, it blew the horse's skin off.
Wow. No wonder anime is so good.
Yeah, this did influence anime.
Like everything in their culture is extremely influenced by this. They have a generational cultural PTSD from this.
It's finally starting to come out in One Piece too, and that's why it's crazy now.
I'd never heard the thing about the water. Like, it was so hot. Like, it vaporized
I guess if you're
all the
melting,
moisture.
you want water, and you think to drink it.
Or
but just
jump
like
in
when
there.
you eat spicy food, you're supposed to drink like milk or cheese. Like, you're not supposed to drink water.
Well, like, let's say you go to the desert, and it's one of those dry, wind-wicking deserts, like at Burning Man. Like, you get thirsty really quick, because it just sucks the moisture out of you. And then this was like that, times 100. It's literally sucking the moisture away and up and out. It's gone.
Cooking.
And then these folks, like, they're so thirsty, they're just gonna drink radioactive waste. It's just awful. So yeah, I guess between the degloved horses and the charred hands burning like candles reaching up at you from the ground as a giant mushroom cloud looms over your once city, there were people saying this is the end of the world, this is the end of the world, and clearly it was. So with 2 successful tests out of the way, America only had 1 bomb left. So what did they do? They also dropped that one. Fat Man was even worse. It's just 3 days later, in fact. It was originally intended for Kyoto until slightly cooler heads prevailed. Like, they had all this planned for Kyoto, and it's I guess one of these Japanese culture lovers in the room was like, can we just not do Kyoto, please? Like, it's the cultural center of Japan. You can't bomb Kyoto. They're like, all right, we'll bomb Nagasaki instead. And so Fat Man, it weighed in at 21 kilotons. And despite some hilly areas absorbing some of the blast, nearly 44% of the city, about 1.8 square miles, was destroyed instantly, killing as many as 40,000 people. Despite how awesome these first bombs were, the bombs we have ready for use today make them look like firecrackers by comparison. And worse yet, they exist in far greater quantities by numerous different countries. Following World War II, the Soviets would also perfect this technology, and before long, we had enough nukes pointed at each other to demolish the entire surface of the Earth 300 times over. The largest nuclear weapon ever tested was the Tsar Bomba on October 30th, 1961, over the Novaya Zemlya archipelago in the Arctic Sea. Originally designed with a yield of 100 megatons, it was scaled down to half that size in order to reduce fallout. For some perspective of scale, this 50 megaton blast was 3,000 times more powerful than the bomb dropped on Hiroshima. The fireball from the blast was nearly 5 miles wide and prevented from touching the ground because the shockwave which bounced off of its surface. The mushroom cloud rose into the air 40 miles, and windows were broken as far away as Norway and Finland due to the shockwave which circled the Earth 3 times. Had this bomb been dropped over a populated area, it would have caused third-degree burns as far as 62 miles away. Naturally, it was the most awesome, butt-puckering thing anyone had ever seen. The Soviet scientist leading the project, Andrei Sakharov, he would later become known as an activist for global peace, and the world suddenly began to consider, after testing Tsar Bomba, that there was probably some wisdom in global disarmament. It was after Tsar Bomba, they're like, maybe we should make them more tactical and not just bigger and better. This looming threat of imminent destruction via nukes in a decade-long global-sized Mexican standoff is generally referred to as MAD, or mutually assured destruction, and operates on the assumption that if enough sane people know the information I just told you, we would never, ever use nuclear weaponry and hesitate considerably even if it seemed inevitable. Today, I worry that there are not enough people like that. During the height of the Cold War, during the Bay of Pigs incident, it was said that JFK and Nikita Khrushchev spent hours on the red phone speaking personally to each other in order to avoid this exact scenario, which both leaders claim their military subordinates were just foaming at the mouth with eagerness to initiate. We only exist right now because those conversations between those two dudes went so well. I guess JFK and Khrushchev were just like, you know, they're telling me that I need to bomb you right now, and like if I don't, you're gonna bomb me. And Khrushchev's like, dude, they're telling me the same exact thing. We need to not listen to them. I believe you more than I believe them. Do you believe me more than you believe yours? Yes, I do. Like, that saved the world. So it's good to be able to communicate and do the diplomacy, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we talk about the president and we imagine he's some big powerful person. Like in the United States, he's really much more of a figurehead. You know, this is the one thing the president actually does have power to do. He has power over the military, the executive branch, and by extension, he has the authority to use nuclear weapons. And so it ultimately came down to that. Like, am I ready to initiate the end of the world? And thankfully the leaders were like, yeah, no, let's not do that. I like spaghetti, you know, I like cream colored ponies and warm apple streusel, you know, girls in white sashes with blue cotton laces. I don't know, you've heard the song. So today the Soviets are gone, but the Russia that remains after them is still fiercely independent, territorial, and no less capable of waging nuclear war than it was during the Cold War. Well, maybe a little bit. Now, well, levels of hostility are not what they used to be. Russia is still not a member of NATO, the North American Treaty Organization, a, quote, political and military alliance of countries from Europe and North America whose members are, as it says, committed to protecting each other from any threat. As such, any attack on a NATO member binds each other member to defend the attacked member and fight on its behalf, which means a small war can turn into a big one really quick. The hot controversy at the time of writing this episode is the recent United States government approval for the Ukraine to use NATO's help to deliver explosives deep into Russian territory, and if Russia decides it doesn't like it, that NATO should just be able to bomb inside its borders, it might decide to defend itself. It could attack a NATO country and potentially escalate into the use of thermonuclear weapons. And based on current unclassified data, we have a good idea of what a nuclear exchange between the United States and Russia would look like. Would you like to know what it would be like, everybody?
No.
Well, I'm gonna tell you anyway.
It's fucking horrifying.
There's some really cool graphics, though, when you're modeling it. So that's most of the fun of it. Like, if you're in a bunker and you see all the red lights and the blue lights and the big flashes on the Google Earth, it's probably going to be a little exciting. But then after that, you can never have avocado toast again.
It's like I'm a baby and I'm just fascinated by the beeps and boops and the lines.
I mean, that's what war is. So when one side detects that the other has launched nuclear missiles, they send theirs immediately in retaliation. This is, for all intents and purposes, the point of no return. The vast majority of these missiles are known as MIRVs, or multiply independently targetable reentry vehicles, which is a fancy way of saying a rocket with between 3 and 12 little rockets inside that can each hit a different target. The launch vehicle vehicle uses an onboard computer and a small rocket motor to make small adjustments to its flight path, and it deploys each of the small missiles from what is called a bus. These missiles then fall to Earth unguided, using nothing but gravity all the way down to their target. The thing is, each of these small rockets can weigh up to 100 megatons, twice the size of the Tsar Bomba. From what I understand, MIRVs have been made illegal due to some international treaties that the United States and Russia have entered into, but Russia has since left them a few years ago, and now they're ramping up nuclear testing in preparation for an uncertain future, and I couldn't figure out if we have MIRVs or not, and probably a state secret. So who can really say? I don't know. But the information that we have that's unclassified about what an exchange today would look like, MIRVs or not, nukes from the United States would hit Russia first in about 10 minutes, and then just a few minutes later, the ones launched back would find their targets with equal lethality. Before the big ones land, though, a few specifically designed to pulse EMP in the upper atmosphere would first fry power grids and electronics of every conceivable kind, rendering them immediately useless. So you couldn't live stream to Instagram. You would just have to die alone. You'd be immediately cut off. And then electronics damaged in this way, they would never function again. Let's say you do survive. Unless you could fix fried circuits, you're not gonna fix it, essentially. So then the next strike hits command and control targets all over the world. Military targets, places that also have the ability to launch ICBMs and nukes. The land-based intercontinental ballistic missiles, they take up to a half hour to arrive. So I guess presumably the submarine ones, they hit first, and then the ones that are based on land, they hit next. Major population centers are targeted as well, because they too are connected to prominent military facilities, and their destruction would frustrate recovery efforts. A great number of cruise missiles, they take hours to hit their target. And then because France and Britain are allied to the United States and bound to defend her under Article 5 of NATO, they are struck by Russia preemptively as well. Firestorms totally melt glass and metal, turning asphalt into molten liquid. Plumes of black smoke push radioactive soot into the atmosphere, far above any rain clouds that could ever wash away the smoke. And this plume of smoke circulates around the Earth, being heated by the sun and pushed around by the jet streams in the upper atmosphere for up to a decade, choking out and starving the surface of sunlight the whole time. So it's like a cold death shroud. The smoke prevents any warmth or light from the sun reaching the surface, and everything begins to freeze, lowering the global temperature as much as 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Some places it's even worse than that. Due to the inability to grow crops, it's estimated that as much as 5 billion people would starve to death, including 99% of those in the northern hemisphere. 99%! The rest of you are polishing Bill Gates' toenails in a bunker somewhere as he watches reruns of Friends over and over and over again.
Canadian news sources, they finally came out and said that it doesn't really matter where nukes go off. If they go off anywhere, 99% of Canada will die, whether we were the target or not.
Just because of weather.
Just because of where we are. Yeah, the nuclear winter everyone would die of starvation, at a minimum of starvation, if not freezing to death. The temperatures can actually get to minus 80 Fahrenheit when you block the sun out.
It's like when you go into the grocery store and they just got done bleaching the floors. There's still probably a few germs or little microns on the floor, but there were a lot more before the bleach. It sounds like this black cloud it wouldn't kill everybody, but the idea of anyone surviving this, maybe in Australia or whatever, it would be inconceivable, the damage this would do. I mean, in theory, population rebuilding efforts might be possible, but that's likely only if the wealthy and the eccentric manage to have offspring in deep underground bunkers. And then those offspring survive long enough for the sunshine to finally pierce the murky veil of black, the nuclear winter to subside, and the radiation would have to dissipate down to normal levels. The world they would emerge into would be strange, hostile, and totally alien to them. Like Fallout. So when Justin Trudeau goes on television and starts screaming about how we need to win the war at all costs, I just wanted you to know what the costs were. That's all.
It's a lot of costs.
Just remember, click, 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 click.
As a Canadian, I deeply apologize for Justin Trudeau and Justin Bieber. I'm very sorry.
We don't blame you personally.
As an American, I apologize for Diddy, but not really.
Did you see how much lube he was caught with?
baby oil,
Which means it doesn't work with condoms. Which means he was raw dogging people in the butt. You know why? Because vaginas make their own lubricant. You know what? Butts? You need baby oil for that. Clapping them cheeks.
All I know is pain.
Sometimes the news, it really does sound like we're in the end of days.
But if you'd like to hear about all the other ways the world will probably end, if not by nukes, then please visit www.patreon.com/thewholerabbit, where your monthly donation of just $5 would not only get you this extended episode, but every single one of our extended episodes going back before the Roaring 20s. I'll send you a 5x5 high quality vinyl sticker for our Big Bunny Baphomet cover art, and you'll get the secret keys to our Discord server, where you can talk to us about how you're going to survive the nuclear winter by growing cheese plants in your hydroponic setup, or maybe even growing a wiener tree that grows wieners. You never have too many wiener trees.
I think it's some kind of mallow that are called cheeses. So there is a cheese plant.
You want to talk about flowers and just weird Discord, Patreon.
You know what I heard? You could use those cattail reeds, like on the side of riverbeds, and just put those in a hot dog bun and just eat them like a hot dog.
You can eat the roots.
Yeah, don't listen to Luke.
I'm being seedy. Thank you, everybody. Eat carrots and shoot lasers.
No pew pew pew.
Pew pew.
No pew pew pew.